Why is it so hard to be soft? I've been trying to soften in my romantic relationship, and it's been really hard. I keep falling into the pattern of reacting, being defensive, and being critical. And I really want to change this habit, so I've been reflecting on it. And I came across a poem that gave me a lot of insight into the answer. It's hard to be soft because being soft requires courage. It's so much harder and scarier being soft than being tough, because being soft means letting down your guard when you want to put your walls up. It means facing your fears, your insecurities, and your doubts. And it means allowing yourself to feel vulnerable. So I'm going to share bits of the poem with you because I think it'll help to guide us into understanding why it's so hard to be soft in love. And I'll also share some advice that my meditation teacher shared with me. Hopefully this can guide us towards embodying more softness in our relationships. So the poem is called The Difference Between Strength and Courage by David L. Griffith. And it starts with, "It takes strength to be firm. It takes courage to be gentle. It takes strength to stand guard. It takes courage to let down your guard." It really does take courage to let down your guard. And I think especially in love, we become very protective and defensive because we don't want to get hurt. Love makes us feel very vulnerable. And if you've been in relationships, then you probably have some sort of memory related to being hurt. Or it could go back to childhood, being hurt by someone that you loved and trusted. So, especially in romantic relationships, I find that our ego becomes very protective. But the truth is, this is the risk that we have to take for love. Every single romantic relationship has the potential to hurt us, to betray us, to let us down. And it takes courage to know that, but still choose to let your guard down. But a lot of the times we're not even aware of how we're operating. So we put our walls up and we're being very protective and defensive, and we don't notice it, but we're actually reacting with hardness. And I shared my experience with my Vipassana meditation teacher. And he said that these are habits that have very deep roots, and sometimes it can be very difficult for us to be aware of how we're protecting ourselves. So this is a really great opportunity to practice awareness. So whenever you become aware that you are being fearful, defensive, protective, when you feel your heart closing, when you feel yourself trying to put up your walls, put up your guard, just be aware and choose not to react. My teacher said that the most important thing is awareness and choosing not to react. So normally when we feel vulnerable, we'll put our walls up, right? So in that moment when you're aware that you feel vulnerable, it's choosing not to put your walls up. You don't necessarily have to choose a new or different response in that moment, but it's choosing not to feed that habit. So just by choosing not to put your guard up, you're already beginning to change that habit. And it was so much relief to hear my teacher say, don't expect your habits to change overnight. It will take time, and it's a very slow and repetitive process, so don't become discouraged. And I personally find that journaling really helps with my awareness. So if you're also into journaling, I think a good question to ask yourself is, what are you afraid of? And how do you try to protect yourself from getting hurt? Because once you're aware of your habits and how you respond to that feeling of fear or vulnerability, then it becomes easier to notice it in your daily life. And the poem continues. It says, "It takes strength to conquer. It takes courage to surrender." So surrender means letting go of control. And I think a lot of us have a hard time letting go of control, especially in romantic relationships. We all have our own expectations of how the relationship should go and how our partner should treat us. And it becomes really difficult to release these expectations. And I think that a really common source of conflict in relationships is that people try to change each other and control each other. So when we're being very controlling, we can imagine that our fist is closed. And when we surrender, we can imagine that our hand is open. So when we're going into the relationship with closed fists, it's like we're asking for a fight. And I've noticed in my own relationship that my expectations and my need to control the situation, the other person, it all becomes a source of conflict. It causes so much unnecessary drama in the relationship. And it really does require a lot of courage to know that you are safe to open your fist and let the other person be who they are, and to let the relationship evolve without you interfering. It takes a lot of courage to face what you're trying to control, because control means that there's something that you're afraid of. But in the end, we can't force or control our relationships. That's not how they work. And we can't control our discomfort. There's nothing that we can do to make it go away by force. And I experienced this during Vipassana. It was only when I surrendered to the discomfort that the pain finally alleviated. And I found that everything that I was trying to do, all the effort that I was putting in to make the pain go away, was actually making it worse. And I think it's the same in our relationships. It takes courage to surrender and to know that this relationship is out of our control. And I think that can be a really scary thing for us. But a lot of the times, the harder we try, the more we suffocate our relationships. And the poem continues. It says, "It takes strength to feel a friend's pain. It takes courage to feel your own pain. It takes strength to hide your own pains. It takes courage to show them." It takes courage to feel your own pains and to show them. And this is one of the reasons why I've been being so defensive, because I don't want to face my pain and I don't want to show them. So I was swallowing my pain and hiding it. And this actually is related to my fear of abandonment. So I fear that my pain will be too much for the other person. So I don't want to burden them with it. And I'm also attached to this ideal self-image of myself where I am very independent and I'm strong and I don't need to express my pain to myself or to my partner. But that's so unrealistic, and I know that as well. But it's a habit, and it goes, and it definitely has very deep roots. But basically, I wasn't accepting myself as I am. And I think this is really important when it comes to pain. And I learned this when I was dealing with my chronic anxiety. So when I was relieving my anxiety, I learned that one of the biggest reasons that I was anxious was because I wasn't accepting myself as a whole. I wasn't accepting all of me. I was only accepting certain parts of me that I thought were admirable, respectable, and desirable, and the rest I was rejecting and ignoring and avoiding. And what happens is you become fractured, and there's so much conflict inside of you, and it just becomes a very hostile environment within you because you're constantly fighting yourself. And this is exactly what was happening in my romantic relationship. I was fighting myself. I wasn't accepting the parts of me that were feeling pain and needing to share it with my partner. And I shared this with my Vipassana teacher. I told him that I want to change this habit. And he really emphasized the fact that it's important to show your pain when you are not in pain. If you try to show your pain to your partner when you are still in pain, then you won't have a constructive conversation around it. You'll be very reactive, and it can easily lead to blaming the other person or being very defensive, and it just won't be a healthy conversation. This isn't about avoiding the conversation. This isn't about avoiding the pain. It's about waiting for the pain to subside so that you can have an objective conversation. And I think this is a really important point when it comes to embodying softness, because we can't be soft in our conversations, in our minds, when we are in pain. So if you're like me and you struggle to either feel your pain or express your pain to your partner, take this advice. I'm going to practice it too. Don't show your pain when you're in pain. Wait for the pain to subside. Take some time to reflect on it. Maybe journal, meditate, do what you need to do, take a walk, and then have an objective conversation about it with your partner. And I think that would be really helpful to change the habit of responding to your own pain with hardness. And this is how the poem ends. It says, "It takes strength to stand alone. It takes courage to lean on another. It takes strength to love. It takes courage to be loved." Everything we just talked about, having the courage to let down your guard, to surrender, to feel your pain and to show them, it all takes courage, and it's all about the courage to be loved. It's difficult to be loved when we're not fully showing all of ourselves, when we're hiding behind a wall, when we're closing our hearts, when we're putting up this hard exterior. We're not letting the other person in. We're not letting the other person see who we are. And sometimes it can be embarrassing. Sometimes it can feel shameful to show the other person what lies behind those walls. But I think that being soft, softening in romantic relationships in particular, is a learning process. It's a learning process of self-acceptance. It's accepting that there are parts of us that are fearful, that don't want to get hurt, that are defensive, and it's accepting that and allowing those parts of ourselves to be seen by our partner and also by ourselves. Being soft isn't for the other person. At the end of the day, it's for us. It's for me. It's for me to soften in the face of my fears, my insecurities, my doubts. And it's for me to learn to be okay with all of me, to love myself and accept myself as a whole.